Hello friends, my name is Manoj Kumar from Corp IT. In today's video, we'll discuss about what is Kubernetes architecture. In the previous video, we already discussed about why we need actually Kubernetes. So now in the Kubernetes architecture, we need to understand two things. There are two components in the Kubernetes that we need to think about. One is the control plane and the another is the data plane. You can also think of these components as a master and a worker. The control plane is usually your master node and your data plane are usually your worker node. So in the control plane, there are five important components. There are further more components are there, but there are five which are important one. So the first one is Kube API Server. So you can think of a Kube API Server as a gateway for the control plane. Anything that need to be communicated to the data plane, it should go from the control plane. Any service, any component cannot directly connect with the data plane directly. Only the Kube's API server is the only component which can help any of the component to communicate with the data plane. After that, the another component is etcd. Etcd is basically a data store, but the what is the benefit of the etcd uh, toward any other database that we have? It is a key value store. So let's suppose if you search any query, it will give you result in the same time. So that's one of the benefit. That the reason in Kubernetes we use etcd. After that, we have a scheduler. You can think of it, let's suppose you created you make a request to create a pod, but scheduler is the component who will check, okay, I have 5 worker node. In from the 5 worker node, there are 2 worker node which are suitable for that pod. So that decision where this pod need to be put is made by the scheduler, but scheduler never place any pod to that particular node. It just only guide to the API server as per my data, and scheduler also fetch data from the etcd, but it's not a directly it will not take. It will request a Kube API server, then Kube API server will request to the etcd. It will fetch, okay, at this current moment in these worker node, this much of a data is there, this much of pods are there, and once the scheduler have that, scheduler decide, okay, this particular pod need to be placed over there. And also one more interesting point that I forgot to mention. So Kube API server is the only component who communicate with the etcd. Apart from this, there is no component who will directly communicate with the etcd. So now we think of a control manager. So control manager, it's a group of multiple managers. So let's suppose you have a replica set, you have a daemon set, and all those components that you have, they have a dedicated manager, and all those managers are managed using the control manager. So anything regarding the management, it's taken care by control manager. After the control manager, we have the cloud connect manager. If you have your Kubernetes on prem, then the cloud connect manager will not come into the picture. But let's suppose if you are deploying your Kubernetes in AWS, or let's suppose in GCP or Azure, at that time these components will be helpful. Now Manoj, now you will ask, Manoj, why these components are helpful. So let's suppose on a you created a pod and it required a S3 bucket. So how Kubernetes define, okay, how I can create a S3 bucket out of it? So at that time the cloud control manager will be helpful. So basically it understand all the beneath cloud APIs, and based upon the request, it just create the entities for us which are requested. Now let's discuss about the component of the data plane. So in there are mainly 3 components that we need to think about. The first one is a kubelet. Kubelet you can think of like your Kube API server, but on a worker node. It's not exactly the same, but you can only think of it. So kubelet will only decide like which API request is coming from the control plane and how those requests can be executed. So another thing is called Kube-proxy. So Kube-proxy is our network component on our data plane. So any IP that you see that assign in a pod, that is taken care by the Kube-proxy. Kube-proxy will only decide, okay, this particular pod we need to assign this IP. Now it is a container runtime. So container, at the end of the day, pod also, like inside the pod we have a container and that need to be run. So there come the container runtime. But you can think of which type of container runtime we can have. We can have like a cryo, we can have like a container D, and all the supported runtime by the CNCF we can have in our Kubernetes. So that's all about this video. If you want to have a detailed written article, you can check out this article. I will also make sure I will just mention this article on the description, so it will be easy. So that's all for this video. Hope you like this. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.